Welcome to A.U.M. We are live, and I'm your host, Callie Fedosinko of Callie Collective, a digital marketing agency designed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience through data-driven custom content, websites, and advertising. As a relationship-based business, your client communication is vital to your success. So, how can you connect with your clients and prospects on a deeper level? A level that no bot could match. Today, we're talking with Patty Kreamer and Michelle Donovan, owners of Productivity Uncorked, coaching advisors on productivity and referrals. We'll be talking about the personality tool DISC and how you can use DISC to help you communicate more effectively and persuasively with your clients and prospects. So, welcome, Patty and Michelle. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Very good. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm very excited about this. My first question for you and for all of our viewers is, what the heck is DISC?
What the heck is DISC? Well, DISC is something you throw like a frisbee, but no. The DISC that we're talking about is behavioral assessment that many of our clients take and any human being can take. It's a short, about 10 to 15-minute assessment. And after you've done, you kind of figure out what behavioral style you are. And the DISC, the D, I, S, and C in DISC stand for the 4 different styles, which we'll probably get into in a little bit.
4 different styles. So how did you discover DISC?
Well, we both discovered it kind of independently before we founded Productivity Uncorked. I go way back to the 90s when I was working for a nonprofit at the time, and the organization decided to bring it in and use it as staff development and so forth. And I was fascinated by it and loved it, and it just kept showing up in various ways throughout my career. And then, Patty, you found it how?
Oh, I was actually somebody. A mentor of mine asked me if I wanted to take a DISC assessment. I'm like, oh, sure, whatever that is. And when I read it, I felt like somebody was spying on me and like in my brain because it came out with exactly how I behave and everything about me. And I thought this is freaking awesome. And so I became a partner with Wiley, which is who I would partner with to get our assessments through. So it's probably been about since 2002, maybe ish.
Okay.
Probably early 2000s, right?
Yeah. So you guys are strong advocates of DISC. I actually had heard of DISC also in the 90s, believe it or not. My mom was a kindergarten teacher, and she went to a teaching conference and took me. And on one of the days, that's what we talked about was the DISC profiles and, which one are you and etc. So I have some familiarity with it. Could you go over what the 4 different ones are?
Yes, we can do that. It would be easiest if I shared my screen just to show you a better idea. Yeah. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Okay, so on your screen, you should be seeing like the 4 different styles that people become or that you can be assessed as. And so the D stands for dominance. And most people who have a D style are very direct. They're very firm and strong-willed. They're forceful. They are very results oriented, and they're just like go-getters. They get things done. And then there's the I, which is for influence, and they're very outgoing. The people that are the life of the party, they're enthusiastic, optimistic, high-spirited, lively, super talkative, like I'm being right now. And then you have the S style, which is steadiness, which is even tempered. They're very nurturing, accommodating, very patient and humble, even tactful. Manners are a very big thing for an S. And then there's the C, which is the conscientiousness. They're very analytical, and they are reserved, precise, private, and systematic. So those are the different styles, and many folks have a combination thereof. So those are just what the styles sort of break down to. That's helpful.
So how do you use DISC when you're working with advisors?
Oh, so many ways.
Yes.
Yes, so many ways, but that is a big loaded question. But the bottom line is that once we give our clients an assessment and they learn about themselves, we help them to really kind of increase their self-awareness and first and foremost, and then start to become aware of how they are perceived by the different kinds of people in their life. So it could be, how they're perceived by their clients, how they're perceived by prospects. Even it even gets into, family members at times too. But with our clients, our goal is to help them really kind of bring DISC into their way of work.
Their relationships, if you
Yes,
will.
to all of their relationships and how they work with all of the people in contact with them.
Yeah.
What could you add to that, Patty?
Well, with a financial advisor, the biggest thing with advisors is their whole business revolves around relationships.
Right.
Without good relationships, they're not going to grow or succeed in any way, shape, or form easily.
Yeah.
So the DISC assessment really helps them to understand how to solidify those relationships, build those relationships, and make them extremely just confidence in their relationships by understanding other people. And without that, it takes a lot longer to build that. A lot.
Would you say that opposites on the graph rub each other the wrong way?
Well,
they could.
Yeah.
Depending on their understanding of each other. Like, for example, Patty and I are exact opposites. Exact opposites.
Yeah.
And but we work together, closely every day and so forth. But our deep understanding of DISC helps us to see those differences as positives. And we've learned how to leverage that within our business. And it also gives you, it helps you to be more patient with each other because you recognize that things are coming from a style. Something might be coming from a style.
Yeah. Okay.
But-
so as an advisor has a client coming in or prospect, it's a tool that they can use to understand them better. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. And what we do when we have somebody in assessment, as Michelle said, we have to help them understand themselves. But the bigger part of that is helping them understand the other styles and how people like to be treated. Most people go on the basis of the golden rule of you treat people the way that you want to be treated, but we call the platinum rule, and it's treating people the way that they want to be treated. So there's no better gift on the planet than to understand how somebody appreciates being approached or spoken to or heard. And when you start to understand the style of another person, even if it's your opposite, which can rub you the wrong way, even though on an aside, opposites do attract. So oftentimes partners and spouses are different and you love that at first. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my, it becomes a little bit issue. But when you understand that, that's when you can make it work. So if you can take the time to get to know who your prospect is ahead of time, or as you're meeting them, we teach people how to do that. You can adapt your behavior to meet them where they are. And the relationship and the communication is so much clearer, appreciated, and just felt. So it's a really good feeling.
Does this also incorporate into emails? So if I'm emailing with a prospect who is a D, should I write my email different? And I'm picking on the D's for everyone listening because I'm opposite, which is an S. So,
Michelle, you want to hit that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that there are many calls that I have with clients, helping them to craft emails to people. And helping them to really articulate using words, very specific words that will resonate with a particular style. It's very helpful because then they can kind of feel as though they're connecting better. And like in your case, when you're talking about a D, the very first thing is that your email has to be very short, very, very short, concise, to the point, because D's, they they won't appreciate a long email. Number one, it'll irritate them just from the beginning.
Yeah.
But it will also cause them to kind of just go off the surface of the email, and they'll miss half the things that are in the email anyway. So that's one of the biggest things with a D.
Yes.
But really talking directly to them using the language of DISC that appeals to each style is what really makes the impact.
You mentioned that there are like specific words to use for different styles. Do you happen to have like a downloadable for our audience that they could grab?
Do we have it?
I don't think we have a downloadable. I think that once you take the assessment, you sort of get the language. And Michelle and I coach individual clients, and so they have their own style. Right. And our goal when we help them with language is to help them feel comfortable, and also make the person that they're speaking to feel comfortable.
Yeah, so, right. That's like the biggest thing. It was like just last week, you know, I was coaching a client on this same topic, you know, and she was faced with a, you know, $20 million prospect, and so you know, found out after our work and really kind of giving her some language and helping her to articulate and really approach the prospects by style and kind of keeping that in mind, she closed the client. And so, you know, without that, she may not have even considered DISC and what impact that could have on connecting and really kind of building a connection with that particular prospect. It makes a huge difference when the client gets to the point where it becomes a part of them, and they can naturally start to communicate in that way.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously in meetings and talking, you can implement a style. In emails. What about social media content? Have you found that maybe different types of people like different types of social media content, or words, or length, or whatever it might be?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
And whenever you're posting something, you want to make it. Sometimes people actually have a target style that they really appreciate working with more. They're comfortable working with a C or a D or whatever style it is.
Yeah.
So if you have an ideal client and you can sort of gear all of your language toward that style. Yeah. If you are willing to work with just about anybody, you want to post, and you're in marketing, you probably have to post many times a day, not once, and you want to have maybe different posts going out to each different style, or to incorporate something within to do it all in one can be tricky. The D doesn't want to read a whole lot, right? But you want to make the content a little more feeling for an S or an I, and a little less on the D and the C side. So it could help you to just vary your posts differently, and even if you do videos, have the same type of content for the style that you're talking.
Yeah, and images will also appeal to different styles individually also. I think you will get it's again about building that connection, and you will have you'll have a greater connection with an I, for example, if the image is bright and cheerful and more appealing, and maybe got some energy in that image, versus a C would want something that was much more calm and not a lot of energy, but have more of a
information.
Yeah, like a more informative, a more realistic kind of image.
Yeah. Okay.
And back to email real quick. Yeah. You really want to get your subject right for the style that you're talking about. The subject is, if it's a D, make it exactly what you're going to be talking about. If it's somebody else like an I, you might say, "Hey, I was thinking of you," and boy, that it's a
little less formal, right?
Yeah. And a C, you'd want to say the data is enclosed, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is awesome,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I identify clients and prospects' personality types?
Well, that's a good question that is asked all the time. And when we do our coaching, we really try to help people to learn how to read individuals. And with that, we teach them that there's a two prongs that you look at. I'll actually share my screen one more time if I may.
Yeah, I was going to say there's probably an image that you could.
Yeah, let me see if
a
I can
little
share
more
this.
insight.
So this is basically the breakdown of the 4 styles, and you can see there in the circle. There's the D, the I, the S, and the C. So when you meet somebody, there's a couple, whether it's on the phone or on Zoom or in person. I guess by email we can talk about that later. But if you're actually paying attention to somebody that you can have observable behavior, these 2 continua that you see on this cross, the first one is based on their pace. So if you're talking to somebody and they're talking really fast, and they're having lunch with them and they're eating really fast, or you're walking to a meeting and they're walking really fast, they're probably most likely in the D and I area. So they're above the line. If they're a little bit more moderate paced or more steady paced, they're just eating slower. And if you're having a conversation, you're pulling information from their mouths. It's, it's not as easy. They might be a steadier pace. So they possibly be in the C and the S range.
Okay.
So that's one observable behavior. The other one is their focus. And you can see this goes to the left to the right. So if you find that you're talking to somebody and they're always saying, I must get this done. This is what I did this weekend. I'm doing this. Here's the activity I'm doing. You hear the do. It's all about task. And so you can sort of push them to that left side, which would make them a D or a C.
I see.
And if you see that they have this people focus, and you'll hear things like my kids, or the people that I work with, or I have to talk to my family. It's more people oriented with how they speak. You can assume that they're on the I or the S side. Is this 100% right every time? No, but it gives you a ballpark. So if you're talking to a fast-paced, task-focused person, you'd probably look at a D.
Yeah.
If they're fast-paced and they're more people-focused, you're looking at an I.
So this is why my husband always walks faster than me.
Yes. Exactly. He's a D, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and so you're always catching up when he's like,
you can't keep up.
Yeah.
I don't even try to keep up.
Yes. And so if you find someone that's a people focused and they're more steady, they're in the S range. And if they're a little bit slower paced, but they're very task focused, you might be looking at a C. And again, this is 100% a guess, but it's observable behavior. And if they took the assessment, you might get it partially right. But it just gives you a way to know how to adapt once you just observe those 2 things.
Right. Yeah.
Pinpoint.
When you have parties, he wants to have a task to do.
Yes.
And I don't.
Yeah. One of the it's very easy to identify someone's pace. Just pay attention. And I think that's one of the things that I help my clients to first focus in on, because you can easily cut that circle in half, top and bottom, and know that if you're really focused on the pace, you probably have a D or an I, or if it's a more methodical pace, an S or a C. And a lot of times when you're when you get that far, if you're able to really start to relate to that person in one of their top 2 styles, you're going to have success with connecting to that person.
Let's say that someone had a lot of coffee and they're going faster, and I identify them wrong. What's the worst thing that can happen? Should I be worried about this?
No. I think that you have to you give yourself some grace. There are people that are also a combination of paces. People that are an an IS, they're fast paced at times and they're slower paced at times. It just depends.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel like you have to get it right. The thing that you want to do is just pay attention, be aware, maybe just match their pace at that time. If they're on caffeine, you might want to match it anyways. But just matching their pace and mirroring that is half the battle. And so that's something to think about. But just being kind to somebody is more important than getting their style.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think also that remembering that pace is only one piece of it. Yeah. There's, if you're meeting someone for the first time and they're, on on high because of a caffeine fix or whatever.
Right.
There's more to the person that you could observe
Mm.
to give you a even further indication, of their style kind of thing.
Right.
We get into handshakes and what they're wearing, how how they present themselves, how they not only that, what they're motivated by, all different things that really
Right.
kind of give you a bigger picture of an individual to help you really identify.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just even how you communicated up until the meeting,
Mhm.
looking at that. But our goal, again, with our clients is not just to work with one person in a firm. We love to do that. That's what we do typically, is coach
Yeah.
one-on-one. But if we can get the disc into a firm so
Mm.
that everybody understands it, the bigger step is to make it part of their DNA.
Mm.
And it becomes, once you do this, Callie, over and over,
Yeah.
if you start to look at people, you just recognize it and
Right.
you really grasp it much more quickly. Even when you're watching TV, it's a good time to practice.
Mm.
But just really paying attention to this stuff on a regular basis makes it part of the firm's. In fact, we have a couple clients. You were asking about some of the success stories that Michelle had, and she told you about a $20 million client that our prospect that we had somebody convert last week. We have clients that do some amazing things where they actually make it a part of their CRM for their clients. They all, as a company, they sit down and they all assess the style of each client, and they put it in a field in their CRM that they've identified.
I just did that in mine.
Did you really? Good for
I
you.
did.
Good. So when the phone rings and whoever picks up the phone, they can adapt to that style.
Right.
It makes the client feel understood and it makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever get pushback from clients that they're concerned about coming across fake and changing the way I communicate? Is that inauthentic? And how do you broach that?
Yeah. Do you want to hit that?
Go ahead, Patty. Go ahead.
What we never want anyone to be fake or disingenuous. It's not the idea of DISC. The whole point of DISC is not about you. It's about the other person. So if you are willing to take the information that you learn through DISC to adapt your behavior so that somebody else is more comfortable and feels heard and feels understood, so that the communication deepens, then it's not manipulation. Because that's the word I hear. Is it's not like manipulating. No, it's more like meeting somebody where they are.
Yeah.
And making the decision to enforce this stuff so that you can move things forward comfortably on both sides.
When we went through our training recently, I really liked your analogy of the jacket.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll tell you about that.
Yeah, that's how we've kind of explained that, because if you think of having all 4 style coats in the closet, one coat that's a D, an I, an S, and a C, for example, you're naturally going to have a coat that fits you perfectly, and that's probably your dominant style, the style that is within you pretty much, and that's the coat that you wear every day, who you are. But when you're adapting to somebody else, we all have all 4 styles within us to a certain degree. So it's not about whether you can adapt to somebody else. It's more about, are you willing to adapt to somebody else?
Yeah.
So if you need to adapt and kind of meet them a little bit more where they are, you reach in the coat closet, put on your I coat, for example, for the interaction that you're about to have, maybe raise up the I traits within you and interact with that person a little bit more closely to how they are. But then when you're done with that interaction, you can come back to your coat, put your coat back in a closet, and it doesn't necessarily make you change internally who you are.
Right.
You're the same person inside the coat, no matter which coat you're wearing.
Yeah. When is it most important that I should put on a different coat? Like, when is it most important to reflect my client's personality back to them?
Always.
All the time. Yeah, I think all the time.
Yeah. And you want people to see your authentic self as well. That's not it. But you are the person that has the information once you take the DISC assessment and have some training behind it. once you have that information, I don't want to say it's your responsibility, but it kind of is your responsibility and your decision to enforce it and allow it to enter into every relationship and every conversation and meeting that you have.
Yeah.
So all it's going to do is make things easier for everybody.
Right. Yeah, because once you have this knowledge and this understanding, you really do put yourself into the leadership role with each relationship that you have. And if you perform as a leader in that relationship, you do have a certain level of responsibility, and that comes along, kind of just comes out naturally if you start to kind of keep that in mind.
Have you found that most advisors are predominantly one style?
Nope.
Really?
No, they say, they being the folks that have had almost 50 years behind all this stuff that they've all the research that they've done to develop this, and the Wiley assessment that we use is the original, so they have a ton of research behind it, and it always breaks down. People are like, how about generations? How about races? How about genders? There's like 25% in almost every area that you can come up with, whether it's financial advisors. It's very interesting.
That is interesting. When I worked at a firm, well, it's been a while now, but when I worked at a firm before, I remember most of the advisors were D's and I's. There were a few outside of that, but predominantly they were D's and I's. But maybe that's because of who they chose to hire. I don't know.
It could be because that certainly does play into it.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, I believe that DISC can really level the playing field between generations. Because if you really think about it, because there's a lot of generations in the workforce right now, and certainly in the wealth management field, there's the new advisors coming in and the more experienced advisors. And, we've mentioned the D style. If you're a D style and you're in your mid 50s and you have a 30-year-old person who's a D style, they're going to have very similar traits because of their style. And so they can, you can actually level a playing field and find some commonalities and some understanding between the generations just with an understanding of DISC.
Right. That's a good point. And between, male, female, I feel like that too is, especially there's so few women in the financial advisor field.
Right.
Do you have any other stories that you can tell us of clients who have used DISC and it brought forth something?
Well, we have another. We have some firms. We just can't say their names on here, but they actually even have there's probably 80 or no, it's probably not 100 employees.
Yeah, probably now. Yeah.
And they have their in-out board above the receptionist desk. So you have to put when you're in or out. It's all electronic. And they even have their styles up there. They just have it so ingrained. And it just makes the communication among the team so much stronger because they really take it to heart.
Yeah.
Michelle, you work with people all the time on the referral side. What have you?
Yeah, there's probably too many to count that have, closed more business because of incorporating DISC into how they're approaching prospects and how they're having those sales conversations more or less. Yeah. But even those advisors who are bringing on partners, bringing on associates, bringing on anyone to their firm. We even have a gentleman who's looking at doing some collaborations and things like that. And when we encourage them to have a DISC assessment performed on whoever it is they're considering to join up with in some way, because it really gives us then an opportunity as their coaches to help them and coach them even further through any kinds of interactions that may come up that, maybe give them a little bit of tension, but also to help them make good, firm decisions on who they're bringing in and who to avoid. And so sometimes it gets to be really, really very, very helpful in so many situations.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not necessarily a hiring tool.
Right.
You don't want to base a hire on just the DISC assessment,
Right.
but of the hiring process, so that when you're bringing somebody in, if you're bringing someone in to be client facing and they're maybe a C who would like to be in the back room working alone,
Right.
may not be a good fit, but you can find something else where they are strong at. So it just helps you to know who you're bringing on.
Yeah.
And getting that, because you don't want to put a square peg into a round hole. It just won't.
Right.
And so it can be a help.
Right. It's just leveraging. Yeah.
Right,
Leveraging
right.
people's,
Strengths.
where people fit best.
Yeah. So how can our audience learn more?
Well, that's a good question. They can always visit our website, but I think that one of the best things to learn more about DISC is to join us every Wednesday at 1:00 Eastern time. We have a show called the DISC Live Show, DISC Live USA. And we have partnered with our friends in the UK called DISC Simple, and they allow us to use their process. And we just have a half-hour call every week, every Wednesday, and you can come in and learn more. It's interactive, it's quick, it's fun, it's educational, and it's a really good way to just dig in. And best of all, it's free. We'd love to have you join us anytime.
Yeah, and I've been to some of those calls, and they are really interesting.
Thanks. Yes.
So we're actually gone over a little bit, but thank you so much, Patty and Michelle. And for those watching, make sure that you join DISC Live. We've got the QR code over here to the right of the screen.
Left.
To the right of my screen.
The left on mine is not
It's over here.
On the side of your screen.
Yeah, it's over on the side. It's to my right.
So make sure you scan that QR code and it'll take you to the registration page. Make sure that you join us next week as we talk to Rachel Covert on how she grew her business by $200,000 by implementing non-icky sales process and how you can implement it too. And we will see you next week. Thank you for everyone for joining. And thank you, Michelle and Patty, for all your insight.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you again.